Welcome to the Persistence Project. We are a podcast that talks all things strength training, from mindset to max effort. I'm your host, Rob Allen. I'm a strength coach and a multi-ply powerlifter, and I love delving into why other coaches, athletes and practitioners within the strength space do what they do. This podcast is brought to you by Jacked and Juiced Apparel and East Coast Supplements in Dubbo. Make sure you go into the show notes and check out what they do. Give them a like and a follow. And today we've got a special one. I'm looking forward to this one because this is my coach, Will Hunt. Will is a strength coach, a powerlifting coach who has taken people to national and world level competitions. He's a multiply powerlifter himself with a best total of 975.
I don't know.
I did bring it up on my phone.
Something like that.
Somewhere in the nines. He has been competing for over a decade and has owned a gym for a decade now. I read on your website that you opened in 2014.
Yes.
Yeah. So today we're going to get into how Will started competing and talk a lot about his programming philosophies and methods. So Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the trip up early. You got a competition tomorrow where you're handling a few.
It's probably actually late.
Late?
Well, all the guys weighed in. I was still in the car.
Yeah.
So I just let them weigh in by themselves and came straight in.
Well, they're all functioning adults. They did well. So how did you first get into training?
In high school, I swam competitively in the summer. That was kind of my job because back then I sound old, but though you could win money at swimming on the weekends. Did you ever hear about that?
No.
So I'd make anywhere from $50 to $300 a weekend.
Right.
From the age of about 11 through to my early teenage years. By racing on the weekend, you'd get paid different. You'd do a carnival a week, and you'd enter a bunch of events, and they'd pay out a certain amount first, second, and third. So you go there to win money. Right. So during the week, I'd train all week. Used to train mornings arvos, 2 hours morning, 2 hours arvo. Race on the weekends, get paid. So I did that basically. Well, I started swimming because I had severe asthma as a kid. Ended up in hospital because I couldn't breathe. It's hereditary the long backstory is the asthma's hereditary from mum. I got into swimming mum ended up in a coma. I ended up getting it as well severely, got put into swimming. Swimming cured my asthma. Swimming took me racing every weekend through to sort of state, national levels, trying to break into the sort of top echelons in the country. And when I hit that top end level, I found I was too weak and too scrawny. I was a bit of a string bean. So the advice, and again, we're going back like long before pre-social media, pre-internet searches on this is the best method to do X, Y, Z. It's just country kid, country town. The kids in the city, you've got access to all the things that we don't sort of mentality. And while we were down at a national meet, a bloke was talking to Dad and said, we've got this and this for our kids, and our kids are in the gym 3 times a week and yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. Next thing I know, they thought it was a good idea that I put a bit of strength on by going to the gym. And so Dad came back and signed me up and ended up in the gym 3 times a week to try and get a bit stronger for the swimming. That was when I was about, I reckon it would have been 15, maybe. So just started training, well, not even train. Looking back, it wasn't training for that. It was just going to the gym. Mm-hmm. And I got a bit of a program, and all it was get on the chest press and get on the lat pull down, and that was it. Yeah, sort of thing. And there was a little bit of structure to it, but it was very sort of just generic for someone who's walked into a commercial gym, has never been to a gym before. And this, again, we're going back before the gym was a popular thing like it is today. It was still back a bit on the fringes. From Dubbo. Dubbo used to have quite a strong bodybuilding community, and they produced some pretty good pros that came through Australia in the 80s and 90s. One of the gyms, so I did a couple of martial arts things as well, and one of the blokes who owned the martial arts thing ended up training and producing some of the sort of top tier bodybuilders that came out of the region. So I ended up training there as my first gym, and it was very much kid who's forked into the gym the first time. What would we do to progress him into the normal bodybuilding sorts of stuff? So it's just do a circuit of the machines. From there, it ended up being bodybuilding-esque style workouts with a couple of the older guys in my sort of mid to later high school.
And when you started training, did it elevate your performance in swimming?
Yeah, it did. Even like that stuff still, like it's hard to tell its direct influence, whether I was just growing up anyway and getting stronger as the course of getting a bit older. Yeah. Whether my times would have come down the same amount with or without, it's hard to tell. Mm-hmm. But I didn't understand the correlation back then either of, it was like, yeah, go to the gym because it's good for you, but I didn't sort of really marry it up in my head like I need to have some sort of intensity here to the carryover over there. Like I didn't quite click until a lot later. Like, that's how that would have worked.
Did the correlation between building like a strong back and being stronger at swimming make sense?
No.
It's just
like I was 15, so I just went, okay. Yeah. I didn't think about the whys or the hows. Yeah. I just went, all right. And we played hockey that was our winter sport as well. So it ended up doing quite well over there as well, sort of state and national level.
And when did you stop swimming?
When I was 16 and realised that I wasn't going to get to the top.
Yeah. So when you started swimming, was it the competitive drive to be good at swimming, or was it just the competitive drive to win cash?
Well, the cash came after. So Dad was a good swimmer back in his day.
Yeah, okay.
When he was a kid, and there was a bloke, I can't remember his name, Ian O'Brien maybe. He was from the Central West. He ended up in the Olympics.
Okay.
And Dad was about a second behind him.
Right.
Where second in swimming's a long way, but it's still a second behind the best the country's producing at an Olympic level is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So when I fell into it from the asthma, Dad took a liking to it because I did the thing that he was good at. Mm-hmm. And so then it built pretty quickly from there to being competitive.
Yeah. What stopped the swimming?
I realised I wasn't going to be the best.
Yeah. And did you transition to any other sport or just stay in the gym?
I stayed in the gym because I liked it.
Yeah.
I was playing hockey in the off season, and I stopped playing about that same time. That later high school.
Yeah.
When I discovered booze and parties and all that sort of stuff as well. So, and back like those kind of sports too. If you're going to make an Olympic level or a top level when you're quite young. Mm-hmm. So my career was ending as I was about 16, and I realised that was if I was going to make it, I'd be making it already.
Yeah,
and I would have been groomed to be going into those top spots, and I wasn't that good.
Okay, and so from that period of time, how did you find powerlifting?
I didn't find powerlifting till a little bit later. Yep. I heard about it, but I didn't understand what it was. Later high school, I was training with a couple of bodybuilders, and they were actively competing.
Yeah,
I didn't really like I liked the training. I didn't like the notion of competing. The tanning and oiling and standing in your G-bag, it just wasn't for me. So I give that bit a miss. Yeah. But I enjoyed the training, and I liked that you turn up with the group of dudes, and I was the young guy sort of got taken under the wing of the older fellas, and it was like a little something to fill me afternoons, because like you said, the swimming training was pretty demanding, and it was a lot of it, and I need something to kind of fill that time that I now had free, instead of just, again, we're going back before social media, and before, like, if you put down your phone and stopped your screen time, how much free time would you have? Like, I had a lot of free time once that stopped. So it was back in the day where you just ride your bike anywhere you wanted to go, and if I wasn't training for something, I'd probably get myself into trouble.
Yeah.
So it ended up in the gym, just fluffing around really. Like I wasn't training hard by any stretch of the imagination, but I was there and I was enjoying it.
Yeah. And so how did you find powerlifting then?
Well, a couple of years later, I was working and there was an opportunity to get a week off work to play sport. And I looked at the list of sports and powerlifting was in there. And I said, oh, we'll go and do that. Yeah. And it's that was the Southern Hemisphere Police and Military Games. It's 2008 maybe. Yeah. Hosted by, well, I now know it was hosted by Powerlifting Australia, but back then I had no idea. I just thought powerlifting was powerlifting. I did try and get into it. So that was and it was a push-pull in Hobart.
Okay.
And I can't remember how much. And I didn't know the rules either. Again, I had never seen powerlifting before. I'd never heard about it before. I turned up I read a little bit on some forums. So I knew what it entailed, but I didn't know that there was rules. I didn't know that there was commands. I just thought you rocked up and you bench pressed. You rocked up and you squatted. You rocked up and you deadlift. So by this point, I was training with probably a bit more direction. Well, not really direction, but I knew I needed to lift heavier to get stronger. So there was a goal of putting more weight on the bar by this stage, and I was actively trying to. I didn't have a methodology or a concept behind it, but I was trying to add more weight to the bar. So more or less, you'd go in every session, you'd put a bit more weight on, give it a run. Yeah, and whether that was successful or not, it's another story. But that's basically what I was doing. Yeah. And so we rocked up to this comp in Hobart, and it was on the waterfront down at the. Have you ever been to Hobart? Mm-hmm. You know, down at that like pier with all the shops and the waterfront is. Yep. The comp was down in the front of there. It was a really cool location, and there probably would have been a crowd of about 500 people there. It was it was pretty neat. And I benched.
You missed. I've heard you tell this story before. You missed your first one because you just completely jumped the commands. And
I didn't know that there was commands, so I just brought it down, pressed it, racked it, easy as that's fucking easy, no drama. So I said failed. I'm like, what the fuck for? Yeah. And then there's like, you gotta pause. I was like, pause what? Then they explained there was commands. I went, oh right, okay. Yeah. No worries, I'll do it again then. I can't even remember what the weight is, to be honest. I think it might have been 160 to 180. Yeah. In there somewhere. Next one I come out, paused it, no worries, mate. Failed. Asses off the bench. Well, you didn't tell me I had to keep that on the bench. And so you gotta do that. And almost had to go. I said, now you're just making up rules as you go along, mate. Because there was no brief about the rules at the start. It was
I was going to say, did you miss the brief?
No, there was none.
You just expected to know.
You just turned up, and there was I can't even remember how many people were in the comp. Yeah. I remember two dudes that were there and we're still friends to this day. Like I ended up making some friends there. But yeah.
One of which being Lee Wisby.
Big Lee was.
The Wiz.
Yep, he was my first powerlifting friend all the way back then. So the next one, I got my third in, but it was fucking hard. Yeah. When they imposed all these rules on me, suddenly it got real hard real quick. I couldn't just do it how I wanted to. And then deadlift, I can't remember what I deadlifted. I think I was around somewhere between the 280 and 300 mark. Yeah. I think I tried 300 and failed it, but I got something in there. Yeah. But it was fun.
Yeah. And you had people at the time tell you that was pretty good.
Yeah, Lee told me that was good at the time. I had no idea. Yeah. And Lee goes, yeah, that's good. You should do this. Yeah. And I went, all right, no worries. And so I Googled Powerlifting Australia and it came up with contacts with powerlifting. When I said I Googled Powerlifting Australia, I Googled powerlifting in Australia because I didn't want Powerlifting Canada or something. Yeah. And it turns out that's coincidentally is the federation name. I didn't realise that was a federation. I had no idea that federations existed. I rang them up and they were the rudest pricks on the phone I've ever heard. And it's like someone completely oblivious. I had no idea. I was just like, hey, I tried to do this thing and it was fun and I want to do another one, and they just wouldn't help me. Yeah. I couldn't even sign up. I don't know how, it still baffles me to this day how people could sign up for that shit. Yeah. Because they wouldn't, like you think if a new bloke rings you up and like, oh, I want to get involved, you'd say, well, this is when the comps are and this is how you sign up and this is what you got to do. No, there was none of that. Yeah. So I was talking to Lee, Lee was at the comp. So Lee Wisby, he's been a powerlifter in Australia since the dinosaurs. And he introduced me to a guy that was coaching him. And the guy that was coaching him happened to be the president of CAPO at the time. Right. And so the president of Capo at the time says, how about you come and do a Capo meet next year? This would have been the back end of that year, the next year. He goes, we've got Capo Nationals in August.
Yeah.
That can be your next comp. So that was my next comp after that.
Right.
And I said, cool, no worries. And they were really nice, really helpful. They give me some tips on the day, talk me through the lifts, just the logistics of the day more than anything.
Yeah.
Help me with a bit of training stuff and some ideas on how to train and what I should be doing, and just some ideas leading up to Nats.
Just something that powerlifting comps are kind of known for now. It's like people are generally pretty helpful.
Yeah, well, it turned out they were.
Yeah.
So the Capo Nats the next year after that was my next comp. And then a year after that, I started training with Paul May, who was then my training partner.
And is that when you moved into equipment?
Yes. Yeah.
So you did that first nationals raw in wraps?
There was no wraps because there was no squat. It was just a push-pull.
Oh, okay.
I think I had a deadlift suit. I've got photos of it somewhere. I'm pretty sure I had a deadlift suit.
Yeah. Well, this is 2010. It would have been...
No, this is before 2010.
Before 2000.
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah, 09 would have been.
2008 was the police games, and 2009 national. So Raw's not really a thing.
No, not really. It was kind of starting to emerge, but it was still dominated by equipped. And like that was at the time you'd rock up to comps, and if you didn't have a deadlift suit or a squat suit, they'd say, "Here, borrow my spare."
Yeah,
and you'd get one on the day. And we were walking out lifts in the warm up room in full equipment, which was wild.
Yeah,
and I can't remember the guy's name, but I splattered him in the warm up room. Poor bloke who tried to help me.
Yeah.
We were in a hotel lobby, and this is my first time squatting in a comp in full suit, like full equipped, like multi-ply suit, which I hadn't really practiced in at all. I just was just winging it.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'll spot you." And I was like, "Oh, good, that's helpful," because we were walking out squats on carpet with chalk all over it and talcum powder all over it, and it was slippery as. And I've had some weird stumble coming up, and he's tried to spot me, and the bar slipped off my back and caught him in the nose. And and we just crashed and fell.
Yeah.
Both of us went down like a sack of shit because there was back again, no safeties, nothing.
No.
It was just a literal pair of squat stands in a hotel lobby on slippery ass carpet. So this poor bloke who I'd never met before in my life, who just decided to help me out, got knocked out.
That's a good way to start the day.
I still remember. I felt really bad. I was like, "Fuck! I hope I didn't wreck his comp." And he still went on and pulled over 300.
Yeah, right.
So he was fine.
Yeah,
he was a tough dude.
So obviously, equip's way smaller these days. What have you noticed in that time of the transition where Raw's really exploded? Has the equipped has dropped off a lot, but has it changed a lot? Because gear would have been different.
Like has the equipment changed?
Well, has just equipped competition changed?
Yes and no. Raw exploded because of the barrier for entry.
Yeah.
Like if you can literally squat a bar, you can do a comp. So there is no barrier. Like there is, but like it's a very low barrier for entry. If you can compare that to trying to touch in a bench shirt or trying to get down in a tight poly squat suit, it's really hard for someone who hasn't. If you haven't even trained before, and then you say, "Oh, throw on equipment, do one of these comps," it's basically like you need a group of people around that's going to help. You got to coordinate training times. You need people that know what they're doing to show you how to manipulate the gear, help you get into it, yada yada yada. Whereas Raw, it's simple.
Yeah.
So the reason why it's exploded is because it's so easy in comparison to get into the comp. On the actual equipped lifting side, it goes through stages. Back when I started, the refereeing was super strict across the board. Like when a lot of people think of equipped lifting, they think lax rules and high squats and all that sort of shit. Which really that came later, and that only came out of a couple of feds that seemed to capture the majority of the attention at the right time to give it that image. So it used to be pretty tight kind of rules, which is what you'd expect, like probably tighter than what it is now.
Yep. Denim
shirts, harder to get down in. The equipment was definitely not as good as what it is now. It was probably a bit more generic. Everyone kind of had the same stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. Like, what was the access to gear like?
Well, access was fine because you just order it from the States.
Yeah.
And post works.
Yeah.
So the access was okay.
It's probably cheaper back then too.
It was way cheaper back then. Like we already knew the guys for metal, Minna and Arno.
Yeah.
And so we kind of, because we knew those guys, they were super helpful and they'd send stuff out to us. Titan and Inza were around as well. And again, they were good too.
Yeah.
So the actual access to equipment was fine, but there was less variety available. So it kind of came down to who could manipulate the same kind of gear the best rather than, like, again, it's kind of, it's hard to explain to people who don't know, but now when people get into equipped, you tend to see a little bit of gear searching going on. They're looking for the right bit of gear that'll give you the magic number, and it'll be fucking easy. Yeah. And it doesn't really exist. Like some gear is better than others, but none of it's magic unless it's those band shirts, which we'll get into those in a minute. But unless it's magic.
Yeah.
But there is a bit more gear hopping around than what there used to be, but you find the right bit of kit for you. And well, back then it was all kind of the same stuff. So you could get your own stuff pretty easy because you'd already tried it. And it was who could manipulate this bit of gear the best to get the most over it, like who had the technical proficiency.
So at the top end of competitors, what was the most common in multiply in Australia in the 2010s? Mostly rock and metal? Or?
Yeah, a mix between, actually Metal, Titan and Inza were pretty well spread.
Yeah. So pretty much the same as it is now, really.
More or less, yeah. Multiply was probably a little bit more metal heavy.
Yeah.
Single ply, mostly Titan.
Yeah. So when you started in equipment, obviously that's what you did, and you said that you rock and multiply for the first time at a comp. And what did that transition then look like as you got more into powerlifting and more into learning the gear? Was that largely led through Henry Day? Paul Ney. Is it?
Well, so Paul came. He came out of a group of guys that trained out of Melbourne.
Yeah.
With Marty Gervin and I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long draft. But there was a group of guys because one of the guys there did an internship at Westside, brought a whole heap of Westside stuff back. And so that training methodology at the time was pretty Westside centric or conjugate centric. When I was training it at that time, I didn't know the word conjugate. I just thought this is what training was. So it's just how we trained. And what Paul taught me the most was he's probably not well known in powerlifting anymore, but he was.
Yeah.
Very mathematical mind and technique focused. Very technical, very mathematical, mixed with aggression.
Yeah.
And that was his style. And so those were the first lessons that I learned.
Yeah.
And it was very, like, if you could, I don't know if your listeners are going to know, or you'll know, his methodology was if you could probably hybridize Louis Simmons with Donnie Thompson, that's what you got.
Yeah.
So that outside the box thinking that comes with Donnie Thompson mixed with the conjugate system that Louis brought into our sport.
Yeah.
Mixed with like a WOG level of temper. Or for a short Maltese man.
Yeah.
That was the blend that we ended up with. And it worked really well. Like we competed we ended up getting ready for a couple of world titles together, and where one of us competed, or we had a crew of us competing. And
so were you based in Melbourne at that time?
No, we were based out west, out back New South Wales. He moved out, he got out of Melbourne. Yep. We set up a gym in the middle of the desert.
Right.
And we just recruited a training crew of guys that had never really trained before, trained them up, and off we went. Yeah, so we were up on the Queensland New South Wales border,
right,
and we'd go up and we'd go up and compete at Jeff Lamb's comps up in Brisbane. Yep. For the most part, and we did a couple in Sydney.
Yeah, right.
As well, and
so that's pretty random. But having known you long enough now, your stories are pretty random.
Yeah.
Usually they're bordering on unbelievable.
Oh, it was eccentric.
Yeah.
So our gear was homemade.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I've still got it in the gym today.
Yeah.
We ended up with a couple of plates out of Melbourne, like 45 kilo plates that were used in like the 1970s, like IPF world titles when they were in Australia.
Oh, wow.
So they're still in the gym. I've got them.
So this is all around the 2010 time.
Yeah,
when did you first go to the world titles?
12.
Yeah, and that was for Capo. So you went to WPC Worlds.
No, that was GPC. So
that was GPC.
Back then, so Capo used to have the GPC.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Affiliate.
Yep.
So they had multiple Fed affiliates, and when you went overseas, you do a WPC World with a GPC Worlds a week apart.
Yeah. Okay.
And they were timed a week apart in the same kind of geographical area, so you'd hop one to the other, get two for the price of one.
Yeah.
So we prepped for Latvia in 2011. 2010 was Latvia. There was Finland, Latvia, Czech. I missed Latvia because I blew my knee out at work. So I missed one. Paul blew his pec off in competing in. I should have written notes. Sure. Don't ask me questions. Just surprise me. We'll run with it. Paul blew his pec off in Finland, and then he did bench only with no pec on and bench 280.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure that's still the Capo record.
Right.
So that's still standing.
From having looked at them relatively recently, I think it is.
Yeah, so that'd still be the record. I might. The plan is I might come across and have a crack at it.
Yeah.
At some point.
In what weight class is that in?
Whatever he's in, I'll get to that weight class and just to have a crack at it.
If he's a small man, it'd be like the 90s or the 100s?
No, he was 110s to 125s. Yeah. Right. So
you're close.
Yeah, the lowest I'll have to go is 110. I'll be able to get to 110, no worries.
Right. Well, that'll be kind of, especially if you can get.
So that'll be cool. In 2000 and then we took a big crew of Aussies over in 2012 for Czech Republic.
Yeah.
And that was GPC.
So when you first got into the sport, did you think it would take you places like former Eastern Bloc countries?
I had no plan whatsoever.
Yeah.
I was just lifting to be lifting.
Yeah.
It started off to get a week off work.
Yeah.
And then I just followed my nose. It was never a plan.
And
I just enjoyed it.
It's worked out well. You've got to see
it was just fun.
Fair bit of the random parts of the world that you wouldn't necessarily go to.
Yeah, well, it's a good excuse to travel. You can see different places while you're there. I reckon everyone should do at least one Worlds at some point. But they used to be like the biggest comp on the calendar. Not so much anymore, but they're still definitely worth the trip.
Yeah. Well, you just did Hungary last year for GPC Worlds.
Half the fun of it is the culture difference and the random place that they're in. Like last year, we were in Kishkamfelikaza, which I'd never heard of before.
Yeah.
And probably no one, if you haven't been there, you've never heard of it before.
I saw it written on the posters and I was like,
that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kishkamfelikaza.
Yeah.
That's how you say it. And it was an awesome place, like way off the beaten track. Like you're never going to go there, or Aussies are never going to go there unless you've got a reason to.
Yeah. And it was in a big stadium there?
Yeah, they're always, those Eastern European comps are always in some sort of random sports hall.
Yeah.
Like real old school.
And how many platforms do they have going?
Had two.
Two. It was something like 500 competitors for
No, it was close to 1,000.
1,000.
Close to, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's five.
Not 900, 800,
Yeah, wow.
5 days,
Yeah,
6 days, 5.5 days, something like that.
yeah. And you went over as a coach this time.
Yeah, didn't
and
compete.
took, how many athletes did you take over?
Oh, I had 5?
Yep.
6. 5.
Yeah. And a few of those walked home with GPC world records.
We had 1, 2, 3 got world records.
Yep.
Don't ask me what they were. I can't remember.
It was like any. My athletes will ask programming questions of me. And I'm like, I've written it. It's gone now.
It's out of the brain.
Yeah. I do not. They always go, what have I got next? I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, you wrote it. I'm like, yeah, it's gone.
That's why you wrote it.
Yeah.
So you don't need to remember it.
I wrote that down and got it out of my brain. So when did you start coaching and how did that come about?
By accident.
Yeah.
I started so I had a career change and I was doing I ended up doing some contract security work abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an element of danger in it.
Mm-hmm.
There was another job that came up at the time and based out of Africa, or the Horn of Africa, so Pirates, Africa, like that kind of region. And it didn't sit well with Mum at the time. So Mum
Put her foot down.
she asked me nicely not to.
Yep.
I was in Asia before that, and then going over, and that was going to be the next trip. And the next trip after that is I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm just going to see what's over there, and then I'm going to go from there and go somewhere else. And Mum's words were something to the effect of, "I already don't sleep well with whatever you're doing. Don't do this one." Yeah. And so she gave me the bit of a not so much put her foot down, but the guilt trip down. Okay. And so all right, I'll settle down for 6 months or a year or something, and just. Yeah. Let the dust settle and I'll do something else. And so I came back home to Dubbo for a little while and didn't know what I was going to do. So I really had no idea. I was like, so a lot of my skills weren't really applicable just in your average job market. So I kind of needed to re-skill myself a little bit. This was 2000, start of 2014. So I'd been competing and stuff for a while, done a bunch of comps already, trained pretty consistently now for the last, what was that? First comp was 08, 09.
08, those games, yeah.
So that's that 4, 5, 6. So that's sort of 7 years comp experience, training experience by that point.
Yeah.
Decided that I was going to be a lawyer just because so they seem to make money and how hard could it be?
Yeah.
I had some prior study that I'd done which accounted for a lot of criminal law. So I needed to do an evidentiary law as well. That was already ticked off. I needed to do some contractual stuff and the other boring shit that nobody cares about. Yeah. So I rang UNSW and told them what I had, what I wanted. They gave me recognised prior learning for a bunch of stuff. And then they said the subjects that you need, because I needed to do however many subjects it was, plus a 12-month internship to then take the exam to become a solicitor. So the subjects that I needed weren't available for another 6 months. Like how the semesters work. Yeah. So they said you can't, like the things that you need are starting whatever month it was. Yeah. So I had sort of 6 months to kill. So I decided that I would do some personal training just to do something to do at the time. And so I went up to the local Anytime Fitness and started up there just doing some coaching, taught a yoga class.
No wonder you give me shit about being inflexible then.
I grabbed a few. I did my PT course in the space of about a week online, so it was pretty straightforward. got myself certified and went up there.
So I'm pretty sure they put a time limit on it now that you have to complete it over a longer period of time.
Oh, do they?
Possibly.
Yeah, right. No, it took me a week.
Yeah.
I banged it out.
You might be the reason that they've done that.
Remember that you know that reel on Instagram where it's got the Toy Story dude like clicking through the slides really fast?
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
Get it all done. Sign a bit of paper and get out of there.
Yeah.
Went up there and took up. Like ended up the club just gave me a couple of clients who they sort of really didn't know what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
Those clients I've still got today, so they're still there, which is cool.
That is cool.
I was training by myself. I rented a storage unit at the time, and I was training by myself. So the rack that my mate made for me out west, I brought it with me to Dubbo, stashed it in a storage unit, started training there. There's a side story there too. Do you want to go on the side adventures, or do you want to?
Yeah, your side adventures are always that's where the.
So he was a really, really cool dude that made it in his shed on the piss one night. Just made me a full power rack with a monolift attachment and a bench press. Did the whole thing.
Awesome.
Ended up that we ended up mining for minerals together. So he was a miner.
Was he part of the powerlifting crew when you were out west?
Yeah, we recruited him. He ended up being part of our group. Okay. He competed a couple of times, come overseas with us.
Yeah, awesome.
He was a really good dude. And, made the rack, moved to... I used to go and see him a fair bit. Like he ended up working in mining. He was working for a company that was owned by Rio Tinto, and he was the boss of that.
Right.
So he ended up fairly well.
Pretty high up.
Yeah, and I've said that I've never met anyone that works harder than this dude.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how he did it. Well, cocaine is how he did it, but I don't understand how the dude would work 18 hours a day for 2 months straight on a 7-on, 7-off roster. He just wouldn't take his off days, and he'd double his days up and just hammer through.
Yeah, right.
I've never seen anyone do it. And then on his days off, that was up at Emerald. Then he'd get the car drive all the way the 10 hours home and go and work for his old man on his days off.
Yeah.
It's stupid. Anyway, he made the rack and all that stuff for us and set up in Dubbo, and rang me one day just to check on what I was doing. And I was still this was at the time where I was still that in between 6 months.
Yeah.
I was still pretty keen to get out of Dubbo. I didn't want to stay. I was just waiting for my time to tick over. I really wanted to go back overseas.
Yeah.
And mixture of I was applying for a couple of other jobs that would take me overseas, and mixture of kind of just more dangerous work or like off the beaten path sort of stuff.
Yeah.
He rang me in one day and was just checking up on me. Got everything that you need. What are you what are you doing? Are you set up? Like sort of, I don't know if he sensed I was a bit restless or whatever, but he goes, what do you need from me? Like what can I do to sort of? No, nothing. It's all good. I've got some plans. I'll either do this and do my uni for a year and see if I like it, or I'll head back overseas and I'll do another gig over there. So right, I know. Hung up on the phone, and then he went and killed himself that night.
Oh, right.
Which in hindsight, he was ringing to make sure I'm okay so he can depart.
Yeah.
And it was weird because we'd talk on the phone. We wouldn't talk for a month.
Yeah.
And then we'd spend 3 hours on the phone.
Yeah.
So the phone call wasn't abnormal. So I didn't trigger any alarm bells that, oh, fuck, something's wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And he'd often just check up, see how you know. Like I'd be working and he'd ring up and goes, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I've just got a couple of days off. He goes, cool, I'll book you a plane ticket. You can come up and we'll go nuts on the Gold Coast for 2 days. Yeah. And so, no worries, I'm on my way. So that's sort of how our relationship was anyway. So the phone call wasn't that.
Yeah, you weren't like, oh, something's up.
No. Nah. Yeah, and he rang, just made sure I had all the shit that I needed, and then he went. Yeah. So the rack's still in the gym and it's never going anywhere. Yeah. So it's pretty sentimental. Yeah. Still train with it. Yeah. Which is good. And then what was our original question?
How you started coaching?
And then So I started just coaching my dudes that were there. They gave me an old dude who was we would have been 150 kilo,
right?
And he got run over by a forklift and couldn't walk. And his big call to change was he wants to have grandkids and he wants to be alive for his grandkids. Yeah. So he had a whole heap of health shit going on. And he walked in with all his complications and weird shit to the dudes in the club, and they were like, here, have him. And so he ended up being one of my first clients, and so he's still with us today.
Yeah.
So that was Kenny. Do you know?
Yeah.
You know Kenny. And then a couple of months in, Kenny tried dying in the gym on us. So you know that story?
Oh, I've heard that story. Yeah.
Yeah, so we ended up on the rower in doing the rowing machine just as a bit of a warm up for him. So we got him walking straight again, and we got him to lose. He lost 40 kilos, 50 kilos.
Yeah, right.
Got his health under control. All his bloods came back good. Like the diabetes sort of died right down. Like his blood sugars are fine. His cholesterol's fine. His health markers are good. He's lost all the weight. He's walking properly again. We taught him how to reuse his foot from where he got run over, and everything's going well. Comes into the gym one day, jumps on the rower, and I was talking to someone, and I turned around and he's on the floor.
Right.
Fuck. So ran over there and checked his pulse, and he had no pulse and he had no breathe. So I cleared his mouth out and CPR'd him.
Yeah.
Thinking, fuck, how long's he been on the floor unresponsive for? No one said anything.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Had the shits with it. Got some girl to call the ambos. Got another girl come here in case I need you. Got someone else to block the people away. The ambos, and there was another young lady there. I yelled at her to go and get me a defib off the wall. Never used a defib before. So I thought, now's the time.
Yep.
By this point, I'd done CPR a few times. Like I wasn't a stranger to that sort of stuff. Was doing the compressions, and I got her to open it and start reading it out to me because I didn't want to stop the compressions to figure out the machine. I said, just start like unpacking it and we'll get it on him, because I knew you chuck the pads on, hit the button, it's pretty easy. So get the pads out and get it ready, then we'll transition it on him. And as I was about to rip his shirt to get the pads on him, he opened his eyes and fuck, well, sorry, Will, what was I up to? And I was like, holy shit, you scared the fuck out of me. So he got him conscious right as the ambos were walking in the door as he regained consciousness.
Right.
Turned out he'd had a heart attack. He had asymptomatic pneumonia.
Right.
That wasn't, so not producing any symptoms, didn't even know he was sick, combined with a blockage in his heart that he'd had since birth that he'd never known about.
Right.
And it was the perfect storm of, according to the specialist, perfect storm of this was going to happen no matter what. You were going to be driving your car at that time and you were going to go. You just happened to be somewhere where you could be helped.
Yep.
So touch wood for that. Used my CPR credit to save one, so that was good. We joke about it now. Not so funny at the time, but funny now. I was like, fuck me, Dad, he nearly fucking died.
You wouldn't have let him live it down now.
No, and he also had to be Dad's best mate, so I was like, fuck, don't kill him. So now it's very, and we've never touched a rower since, so fuck those machines.
Fair enough.
We're not.
Fair enough. We wouldn't be going near it if it's...
No, I'm a little bit... superstitious with that shit, so they can fuck right off.
Yeah. So you started Nemesis, the gym started in 2014.
Well, yes, kind of. Well, so I had the dudes in the gym. I had the dudes in Anytime Fitness. Ended up building up like a half decent member base.
Yeah.
Or a client base, I should say. I had a group and we were going really well. And at some point the question came up, how come you never train? I was like, well, I do.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we never see you. I was like, that's because I don't train here because it's shit. And they're like, oh, where do you train? And by this point, one of my mates was coming to train me. So one of my other mates had lost his dad a couple of years before. We were only a few years before. We were probably 20 when he lost his old fella. His old fella went for a walk to the mall, which was probably about 1.5 km away from his house, and never came back. He had a heart attack in the Dunnies.
Right.
So that was completely unexpected out of left field. I'd never had a problem, never been to the doctor before. A perfectly healthy bloke just dropped dead, which rocked him pretty hard, understandably. Yes. So he spent quite a few years sort of lost. And he had come back into Australia at the same time as me. So we kind of just linked up. And he got to the point where he's like, all right, I got to stop this sort of lifestyle and sort my shit out and get a job and figure out life. I'm getting a bit older, but I've worked my shit out. Yeah. So we ended up training together. And a few people asked, like, where do you train? Well, you're welcome to come and have a look. Yeah. A couple of people came to have a look at the storage shed. 5 people started training at the storage shed. Storage shed was now too small. Rented a double storage shed. And that's where it started. Yeah. It came to the point where it was time for me to go. That 6 months rolled around pretty quick. And I wasn't real keen on dropping everything just to study. And I was going to the gym. I was training people. It was a pretty cool sort of pretty cool kind of lifestyle at the time. So the mate that came back that was training with me, he's real big on like entrepreneurship and he's really cluey with computers and all that sort of stuff. And I'm dumb as dog shit when it comes to that. And he's good on the websites and he's good at computers and he's techie and all that sort of shit. And he's reading these fucking business books and then getting into business is something that I'm shit at too. Yeah. But he's reading this stuff on how, and he's money chasing, and again, not me. Yeah. So we're kind of opposites in all that manner, but great mates. And he goes, read this book. And I'm like, all right, I can't remember what it's called. And bloke's in this book's talking, and he's telling this story that he's some millionaire dickhead that goes on holidays, and he's talking to a fisherman. Someone will know the name of this book. And he's talking to this fisherman, and the fisherman goes out, takes him on a fishing charter, cooks him fish, shows him like the island life sort of thing. He's like, fuck, this fish is really good. This is like the best thing I've ever tasted. I've had such a good day. Like, do you realise how much of a marketable product you have? And he's like, no. And he's like, yeah, it's great. Like, what do you do with it? He's like, I just catch enough, give some to my mates, eat, sell, feed the family. That's about it. He's like, oh, you should take these to market. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know that.
Yeah, you should take where it's going. Yeah, you should take this to market. And he goes, yeah, well, okay. And then what would I do? He's like, well, you sell them at market, blah, blah, blah. Well, then what? And he goes, well, then you can, like, don't be content with just your local market. What about the big city market just up the road there? And it's like, oh, well, how do you do that? And he's like, well, for that, you'd probably subcontract out the fishing and you can put like 1 or 2 boats on yourself and they'll be catching the fish and you can oversee the distribution. And he goes, well, what happens after that? And he goes, after that, the next big is to break into a commercial market, into supermarkets and blah, blah, blah. And then you can run the company and have a distribution chain and have a fleet of fishing trawlers and et cetera, et cetera. He's like, oh, what would you do after that? Well, then you can retire and do whatever you want. Like, what would you do if you could retire right now? And he just looks and goes, just go fishing and feed the family for the day. And it would end up in full circles. He's already doing what he wants to do. Yeah. And I was like, fuck, what would I do if I had all the money and I could retire? I was like, I'd probably just fuck around in the gym and shoot on the weekends and fluff around. I was like, fuck, that's what I'm already doing. And so I decided to can the money-making idea of being a solicitor and going for the money and all that sort of shit. I'll just unfold this a bit and see where it goes. And if it fails, I'll go to something else. So I rented the next shed, which I couldn't afford. But fuck it, I'll do it. What are they going to do? Kick me out? Okay. Yeah. Went in there. It worked out fine. It was good. We stayed in there for a year. Got enough people in that it was now too small. Needed and wanted some more equipment, some more space. So by the time we outgrew the second shed, we went from a rack and a bench press and a bar to a set of dumbbells and a reverse hyper and a GHR and a deadlift platform and a bench and the rack and the mono, some other bits and pieces and stuff, and then wanted to move into a bigger spot again, and so decided that we'd go get another mono. Yep. So we got another mono and grew another space that I couldn't afford. bucket, we'll do that too.
Yeah.
Moved into that spot and, just kept filling it out, and then ended up with another mono and another bench after that, and then some more bits and pieces, and then we put a power cage in. And
Is that the one I came to? First one that I came to?
Which one did you first come to?
I don't know. The really hot shed.
It's not narrowing it down.
I know.
How big was it?
Pretty big.
No,
No?
that was the one after that.
Yeah, okay, right.
So then we moved from there to a bigger one again, and then we moved from there to another. So we were there, and then we're in that big one for about 4 years.
Yeah.
But that's how we started, and then it just sort of grew organically. And I've still never advertised. I've never put I still don't have a sign out the front.
Yeah. And since that big one, you've been in two.
Yeah.
You're in.
So that big one, the lease ran out, and the guys that owned it needed it for space, so we got punted out of there.
Yeah.
And then that happened to coincide with a post-COVID market where nothing was available. It was just shit. Either anything was too small or too big and triple the price budget. And there's just nothing of that medium size that I was looking for. So one of my mates had a shed that he was putting his race cars in.
Yep.
So he kicked all his race cars out of his shed that he bought. So he bought a property so he could put all his toys in.
Yeah.
Build a heap of sheds for his toys. Yeah. And so he vacated a shed for me, and I just rented that off him for 12 months till I found the place that I'm in now. And then we moved over to the spot that I'm in now.
Yeah. So how's the fluctuation in members been through that time?
Constant. Like, we don't get many new people, and not many people leave.
Yeah.
So we don't have a turn. We don't really have don't have much of a turnover. Like, you get people drop off and shit happens and people move away and whatever over time, but it's not like a constant influx of people every week and people leaving every week. It's slow. And I think it just comes down to not advertising.
Yeah.
At all.
And probably the culture of the gym too. Like it's its own culture.
Yeah.
It's not a commercial gym is what I'm saying.
No, it's like all that stuff's really organic. I just let the people make the culture themselves. So I like the people in there that take ownership. Whereas I'm kind of like the custodian rather than the owner.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Most people who come in, at least in the beginning, were coached by you?
Yeah, still most people are now. I'd really like another coach in there, to be honest. But fucked if I can find one.
Well, if anyone's listening and they want to coach out of the strongest gym in Dubbo, get in contact with Will.
Yeah, it's been really hard. Like I'd like someone else in there.
Yep.
To grow their own business in there. Just someone different to me would be good. But even if they were a powerlifting coach, I wouldn't care. Yeah. Like as long as they've got a vision and got something they want to achieve. Yeah. And not just anyone either. Like I want someone who's going to bring something in. They need to take ownership and add value, not just be there and pay the rent. Like I want, we use the beer test as for new members because most of the new people that we get are people that like, oh, I've got a mate that would like this, and it's like if like everyone in the place I could sit and have a beer with, and we'd talk and it'd be cool, and if we can't do that, then they're probably not going to stay. And it goes for absolutely everyone. Like everyone can have a conversation with anybody else in there and get along fine. Because it just friends bringing friends or bringing family or whatever. And so it ends up being a really good kind of culture. Yeah. Well, and if you think about how you started it and what the kind of impetus to how you want to do the gym, whether it was deliberately conscious. Oh, I had no plan. Yeah, but it was like you know, what would you do if you could retire tomorrow? And it's just sit around, muck around in the gym. Then obviously the gym is not going to be like something where there's people you don't want to hang out with, and it's driven by stress and money, and as its main kind of way to move forward, you're moving forward by building a community around. Yeah, well, if I won the lotto tomorrow, it'd all be free. Yeah, it'd be the same thing, just free. Yeah, same shit, just free. Yeah. So that's like whether you intended on creating that community or not by that. And like we were talking about this on other episodes where you're leading with the values, even if you're not intentionally leading with values. You're putting your first foot forward is this is what I'm creating in the space
based on the fact that I want to train and be around people that I like. So it's like, it's value driven, even if you're not intending on it being value driven.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So 2014, you've been in, I count from that conversation, 6 places now? 5.
Little one, second one, 3, 4, 5.
5, yeah. And you coach most of the people in there. What does your coaching look like for your powerlifting clients? Because most people that come to the gym are training powerlifting or competing in powerlifting. Would that be accurate?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Most people just general
Strength
and conditioning.
Yep.
Or health and fitness. Okay. So we've got a kind of a cross section of clientele where we do have the competitive lifters. Then we've got the guys and girls who just want to train just for the sake of it. Then we've got like a subcategory of rehab.
Yep.
From various issues or injuries, and they need something sort of specific and focused.
Yeah.
And
which
then
if you go to your website, that's one thing you do advertise is injury rehab.
And then we've got some more recently into sort of some NDIS funded clientele, which are pretty cool too.
Yeah. So of the total members, what percentages? What's the percentage breakdown on how many powerlifters and how many are gen pop and rehab?
Probably like 40% powerlifters to 60% everyone else.
Yeah, okay. I guess having my experiences at the gym are at comps generally. So
so those guys aren't there at the comps, or they're there, or people will come and just watch too.
Yeah. Well, I've met a bunch that come and there's a crew that hang around that are helping or
they'll come
reffing.
They'll come and help out, or bits and pieces that don't compete.
Yeah. Another testament to a unintentional community building.
Yeah. So I trained with on the coaching side, I trained with Paul first, and I said that he taught me a calculated mathematical approach to technical breakdowns, leverages, equipment manipulation.
Yeah. The
second coach that I mentored under was Gerry McNamara, who was a West Side product as well, out of Ireland, who still holds IPF and other Fed world records in the squat. I think one of his, some of his top squats is something around the 420 mark at 67 kilos.
Yeah.
Which is
phenomenal.
Just fucking nuts. And we're talking like a 230 bench at 67.
Yeah.
Just nuts. And he taught me volume and intensity.
Okay.
And work ethic and fearlessness. If you have no fear and you just run, you can run through the wall. He taught me that, if that makes sense.
So being a West Side product, did he train that way too? Did that carry on into his own training? He was
so Louis written articles about him.
Yeah, okay.
He used to go over there and train.
Yeah.
And they used to, he'd go over there for a couple of months at a time and then go back.
How did you come to be mentoring under him?
I met him at Worlds when one trip over there. We just crossed paths. And we got along well.
Yep.
And he's an angry little Irishman. And we just got along with their crew. We started chatting for a bit, and Paul sort of retired. I went my own way. I started coaching and doing my thing. And I wanted coaching. I wanted someone to I wanted to find someone better than me to learn from. I felt like I could learn more. Yeah. I always feel like I could learn more, but I felt really at a deficit. There's a lot more out there that I don't know.
Sure.
I knew enough to know that I knew stuff, but I didn't know enough to okay, how do I take myself from here up a level? Yeah. If I didn't go there, I would have stayed at the level that I was on, but I needed top end knowledge to go. Yeah. I needed my knowledge of an elite level to build myself. So I reached out and he trained me.
So at the time that you were making that decision, what level, like where was your squat and bench and deadlift at?
I squatted in the low to mid threes. I benched 260, 270, 260. And I deadlifted in the high twos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And then Gerry taught me like the new meaning of intensity, and how to like sort of how to take your mental constraints off on what you can achieve.
Sure.
Like there's not like I'm thinking, that'd be my sights were set here, and he was like, no. You can in his own way, like you can like reach a lot higher.
Yeah.
With his own way of saying it. Like he's if you ever met him, he's unique. He's a unique dude.
Yeah.
But good. Like and he took me on. He trained me. He didn't charge me anything.
Yeah.
Everything was free. Like everything was, and we trained together for years. I went over there, trained in his gym. Mm-hmm. Did comps with him overseas.
And so where did you get to after that? Did you see an immediate kind of change?
No, like he taught me how to squat too. Mm-hmm. He taught me technical ability on squatting.
Yeah.
Squat was where was his forte. And he gave me like the foundations to build a squat onto.
Yeah.
So like the into kind of deadlift as well. Like he brought he built the foundations that I could build onto later.
Sure.
Through work and just a build over time, and a volume and work rate over time, like to lay the foundations of everything for later. So his was like a slower build up because I had to unlearn some shit habits.
Yeah.
And to work a few things out.
How did you take to that? Did you go in like, I'm all about it, or were you resistant?
No. Like I'm there to be coachable and learn. Like I'll, like I'm going to ask for help, so I'm going to do everything that he says. Like you can't half-ass implement things and hold on to an old idea.
Sure.
If you expect their vision to work, like I trusted the vision and I trusted the outcome and trusted the plan. Yeah. And did. He gave me the list of shit to do and I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I say that because you see other lifters when they're talking, often they'll be at a decent level and they change something drastic. Like, for example, people who are pretty good who went to Westside and got to Westside and went, like even Dave Tate, this is like, fucking Louis crazy. I'm not doing any of this shit. They really resist it even though they know it's going to make them better. And when they finally give into it, they make it better. So like that's why I asked that question. It's good that you went in and went, I'm good, I need to be better, and here I'm a fucking blank page.
Yeah, just started again. Like, and it took a little while to work a few things out and until just learn what I needed to learn, how to implement different things. Like it was and his method of Westside wasn't the American method of Westside either. Like he had his own version. Yeah. Where the guys before had their own version. Sure. Because I didn't learn the original from Louis, I can't claim that I ever learnt Westside. Yeah. So I don't, if that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Like I learnt the Irish version, I learnt that version of it. Yeah. We disagreed on a couple of things, but I just did my own thing there. Yeah. Where his was, you don't need to warm up, start lifting. And I was like, my knees hurt, man. I've got to do some rehab. So I'd spend it was like, I've just got to, and where Paul taught me, like you can work on your body. You can and he learned from Donnie Thompson, where you can do these things to get your body to cooperate to play the long game. Yeah, yeah. Where Gerry wasn't. He's like, no, you lift. So I was like, no. So that stuff, I was like, no, I've still got to figure my shit out. Yeah. Because I'd just from previous work jobs, I blew my knee out. I dislocated my shoulder twice. Yeah. I had a couple of concussions and some weird shit going on. Yeah. So I needed to just do a couple little warm up things to get into moving well. And once I did them, I moved better.
Yeah.
So I kept those, and then on the training side, I just did the whole whatever he said. So that he taught me heaps there.
What was the main differences you saw between like the American, the West Side version of Conjugate versus your Paul Nay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just thinking Day in my head, and I know it's not. Paul Nay, his version, and then Gerry's version. What were the main differences you saw? Was it all pretty much the same principle, just applied differently?
Yeah, it was the same. Well, conjugate's a weird word,
Yeah.
and it's a weird because it's such an open-ended system of training what you need, and the implementation of it, whilst falling under the same umbrella, can look completely different wherever you go.
Yeah.
So it's not really a comparison.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an easy way to explain it for you people that don't understand. But it's like
how would you define
it's like
the conjugate system?
Well, it's like saying a pair of shoes or a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different styles, but they're all shoes, right?
Yeah.
So it's all the same thing, but they're not.
Yeah. So I guess the best place to start there is how do you define conjugate?
Well,
in the broadest
the
sense possible.
broader sense of the definition is training multiple facets of strength simultaneously. Instead of having we're going to focus on hypertrophy, we're going to focus on strength, we're going to focus on power. We're training multiple facets at one time. So it's just a training system, like in its simplest form.
Yeah.
Whether you call that concurrent or you call it conjugate, whatever.
Yeah.
It's
the same thing.
Same shit. Whereas Gerry's his version was the most redlining version.
Okay.
We'd lift so heavy and so often with so much volume.
Yeah.
Like it was hard. And it's like, holy fuck, that is a lot.
Yeah.
Where Paul's version was a lot more linear based.
Okay.
So our bench and our squat sessions. So on the Monday, our first squat day, we'd pick a movement where we'd go heavy. And most of the time it was a squat.
Yeah.
Bench day, we'd bench in the shirt.
Yeah.
And we'd bench, like every day was in the shirt. Every max bench day was in the shirt.
Okay.
And
so that max squat day, sorry to go back a little bit, you'd pick a movement, it would be a variation of the squat, like camber bar against chains or something?
no, we only really trained straight bar.
Okay.
We didn't train any other bar really. It was mostly straight bar.
Okay.
And it was a heavy version of something.
Yeah.
Heavy version of
Which is
squat.
box squat or free squat or mix it up? Or
Mostly box squat.
Yeah, okay.
Mostly box squat. And the box was always set probably about 1 inch to 2 inches below parallel. Like they were deep box squats.
Yeah.
And the box didn't change height depending on the lifter height. It was all just fucking set for the low. It was set for the shortest lifter. If the shortest lifter could make depth on it, the rest of us had to suck it up.
Yeah.
And I was 6'2", so I fucking sucked.
6'2" with long legs. So
Yeah, and it
a
was
long way.
And it was hard. And so and because of that, so that was a pitfall that I fell into early because I never developed my squat for me.
Yeah, okay.
Like we had the idea of it, like the idea was there. So I spent time with Arno from Metal because he's long and gangly as well, and I emulated my squat style in the early days based off him.
Yeah.
But my box height was wrong. My setups were wrong.
Yeah.
My technical take out of the bar was wrong, and none of that got corrected for ages.
Yeah.
So I developed a heap of shit habits.
So once you went to Gerry, that kind of changed it.
Well, slowly.
Yeah.
I developed a heap of shitty habits. Like on our bench day back in the day, we'd go 6 weeks where we bench 3 board for 2 weeks, 2 board for 2 weeks, 1 board for 2 weeks, touch all in the shirt.
Yeah.
And you just work the weight heavier every week, take the board away every week, or every 2 weeks, and it worked.
Yep.
Especially learning the gear, because to learn the gear you need time in the gear.
Yep.
And I really like that setup still.
Yep.
For guys coming into the benching who just need time in the shirt and just, all right, and just every week just drop the boards down, add some weight, work it out as you go. And it works really, really well. It's really underrated for guys getting into gear.
Yeah, I think a lot of people shy away from being in the shirt often.
Yeah, and just
Like, well, you need to learn it.
Yeah, you've got and because I was in it so much, I learnt it really well.
Yeah.
And I stole Laura Phelps's bench style.
Yeah.
I saw her bench and went, that's how I'm going to do it.
Fair enough. She's strong, but
Yeah.
leverage-wise, very different to you. But
No, but I replicated it.
yeah, okay.
If you look at her bench and look at my bench, you'll see some pretty close similarities. Like you should Google it later and have a look.
I will.
Like have a look at my bench and have a look at hers, and you'll see where mine came from.
Yeah, fair enough.
When my squat was like Arno's and my deadlift, I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I just grabbed it and yanked it. That was it. And then for the dynamic squat day on the squat, we'd start it like exactly the same as the bench. It was very linear.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have like a set amount of bar weight, and we'd have band tension of weeks 1 and 2, band tension up it for week 3 and 4, up it to week 5 and 6.
Right.
And then
so bar weight stays the same.
Band tension changes. Upped it every week. And the tension that we'd have at the end of it was just fucked. Like it was heaps. We'd only have sort of 2 plates bar weight on.
Yeah. And
we'd start off with probably 80 kilos of bands for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we'd up it to like the 150 mark, and then we'd up it to like the 200 mark for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which debatable whether that's the best idea.
Yeah. And just in briefs?
Yeah, just only in briefs. We only ever put the suit on come comp time.
Yeah.
Only ever did it in briefs. And then the dynamic bench was the same. Mm-hmm. We had a set bar weight. It was either, depending on how strong you were, 40, 50, 60 kilos. And we'd have band tension for 2 weeks, up it for 2 weeks, up it for 2 weeks, repeat.
Yeah.
That was it. And then we just run accessories after that.
Yeah.
So then when I went over to Gerry later, that changed to a fuckload of sets. And the weight just kept getting heavier.
Yeah.
And we had more variation in the max effort days.
Mm-hmm.
So we started bringing in a lot more. So before, like our secondary movements was stuff like good mornings and all that sort of stuff. Took second place to a squat on the max effort days. Mm-hmm. Where under Gerry, the max effort work was more varied. Yep. With a heavier volume at the back end of the dynamic days and more varied bar selection. Mm-hmm. Across all lifts.
Yeah. So a little bit more West Side.
Very more close to what West Side is. Like his version was close, but when you see the West Side templates, and they say 20% of your work is your main lift, his was more like 50-50 main lifts to accessories with a way higher volume and weight loading.
On the main work.
Yeah.
So instead of working up to like a 1 RM, you'd work up to multiple sets.
You'd work up to a max, and then you'd add reverse bands, and you'd max it out again, and then you'd like multiple maxes after one another.
Yeah, right.
Which I like that. Yeah. And then on the dynamic days, it was 20 sets of squats, 30 sets of squats, along with 20 sets of deadlifts, and it was just
brutal.
Yeah.
I've got him to blame for you doing that to me.
Yeah, that's where I got that from. Yeah, and I've taken aspects of everyone to put them all in together.
Yeah. So now, as that's all filtered through to you, how would you find your method?
Well, the next part after that. So then I was with Dave Jenkinson.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Sorry, skip Dave.
Yes, don't forget Dave. And Dave taught me precision in programming.
Yeah.
So the other guys taught me lifting. Dave taught me
programming,
like very articulated programming.
Sure. Within the concurrent conjugate kind of method.
Well, he drifted back towards a mixture where we'd keep some stuff linear. We'd just have straight linear periodized some movements. Yep. Mixed with West Side, mixed with whatever other method we needed. Like he was a blend with a conjugate template with blended aspects of multiple systems running through it. Yeah. Person dependent, lifter dependent, outcome dependent. Mm-hmm. And it was volume calculating, and how much do we really need to keep getting better, and what outcomes give what, and what lifts carry into what, and how to set your movements up for comp day. Like, it was more articulated than anything else. So I really got, like, between, like, the guys that I've mentored with over the years have blended my methodologies into, like, an end product that I've taken the best components out of each to come up with something.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So my end result out of that is kind of a mix, probably closest to Dave's methodology out of all of them, but with blends of the other guys in there too. Like, I've taken, like, all the stuff that, like, the technical components that Paul taught me with the volume and bulleted gait work ethic that Gerry's got in an articulated formatting that Dave brought to the table, and not be scared to try things. If I get a client, it's like, oh, see if this works or not. Not scared to fail. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It took me ages to learn, like, on a coaching level. It took me a long time to adjust myself to the lifter. Like, I really need to be who they need me to be. That took me ages to figure that out, instead of just being pig-headed or just because I'm a pretty stubborn person.
Yes.
and I really try to do what they need me to do. I used to take great personal offense if someone would miss a session, like, because I cared so much about them, and I just wanted. And if, like, how can I care this much and you just not turn up? And I took it really personally for a while, and then that used to piss me off a fair bit too. Like, it used to come out as annoyance.
Glad I missed that version of because I missed so many sessions.
But now I had to learn that I'm there to be who they need me to be. Like, I'm not living their journey for them. I'm not lifting their weights for them, where I tried to before. So I really try and vary to mold myself to who they need me to be. Like, I've got a couple of people where they need. Like, I've got a guy who doesn't want to know what we're doing. He turns up on the day. He goes, "What's first?" This, and this. Go. He's like, "Okay." Go. Okay, what's next? Go. Like, really I've got another guy who has to have it written out in front of him early so he can mull it over. All right, no worries, I'll do that. And then I've got someone else who needs a very gentle hand, and they need support and encouragement and a friend and more of like a gentle touch, and encouragement, and to build them up sort of mentally and physically. And then I've got someone else who just likes, don't be a pussy. Just fucking sack up and have a crack. and to learn who needs what, like, was probably a huge part in building as a coach, I think.
I think it's probably the part. It's just like, you can like, the programming stuff's all very interesting, but if you're not, as a coach, molding in an individual sport, to get the individual performance out of someone, you've got to mold yourself to.
It took me like 6 years to figure that out. And again, but I wasn't reading a manual. I wasn't figuring out how to be a good coach. I was just following my nose, like I have the whole time. I haven't. And nothing that I've done has been a plan.
I don't think you can be taught that, though. I think you're either, like, naturally empathic enough to figure it out, or
but I'm not.
Or you figure it out over time through exposure.
I've just needed to work it out over time, and
but I don't think you could have read a book that would tell you how to do that. You just had to be.
Oh, you probably could. There'd be a book somewhere. But you just need the insight to go, this is what I need to go and figure out. Where I didn't have that.
But if it's not your natural inclination, if you're going to read a book about how to be empathic to people's needs, and it's not your natural inclination, you'd be like, well, I don't know how to do that. It can tell you what to do, but you don't know how to do it. It can tell you how to do it, but you still don't understand how it works if you're not naturally that person.
So on the programming side, I try and just go by like a needs-based analysis of like strong is strong, as the old saying goes. Like you're not, you try and sell like, oh, I'll make you really strong for cricket, or I'll make you really strong for football. You're either strong or you're not. So there's going to be no differentiation between types of strong. Everyone is stronger or weaker. So I can take that. Like there's very few concepts, but there's many methods. So I try and take the concept of strength, and then I find the methodology applicable to the person on a needs-based analysis and deliver them what they need to take the next step forward. So whether that's a regression of someone who's had, I've had a kid who's just had a generic spinal condition bolted together with his hips fused into his spine. So regressed right back to what he needs versus a lifter trying to squat more. So it's the same framework applied to do two very different people with what they need. And so they use the same, I guess you can call it some sort of hybridized conjugate of mixture of everything that I just talked about, applied individually to whatever they need.
Do you think coming up through learning how to, because like you said earlier, you didn't know it was like the West Side style or conjugate, it was just training. Do you think coming up through that kind of style of training has helped you apply a broad spectrum to other people?
I think it gives me an open mind. Where you can get people that are pretty blocked into like one point of view, and they refuse to think that anything else is going to work, where really everything's going to work if you train hard enough. If you have an athlete buy-in or a personal buy-in and you think it's going to work, it probably will. Unless you fuck something up horrendously. But everything's going to work. The question is how much, to what degree. Will something work slightly? And there's no... The problem with it is, and why there's even a debate in the first place, is there's no retrospective argument where we can take the same person and run multiple systems on them at once to make a comparison. No. Like once you get to a point, you're there. And like you look at the people that came out of Westside, and a lot of them are extremely successful, and that was their foundation. So what does that tell you? Like there's been no, like what other gym has produced that amount of people?
And they're not people, not necessarily people who came there strong. They came there to start training.
But they came not even on a strength level. They came out of there successful in whatever field they came out of. They've taken the outside the box thinking and applied it to their own practices in life, and have made themselves successful in that way. Where what other places produce that? I don't know if there is any. There might be, but I haven't.
Probably not to the level.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So I think it's just like it'll give you an outside the box picture of we can try a bunch of different things. Like what you need to do for person one, it's not necessarily what's going to happen for person two. Run different things, see what happens, see what your outcome is. If it doesn't work, well, try something else. And if it works, you follow your nose with what works. If it keeps working, you keep following it. If it stops working, then change. And as long as you don't get so drilled down and like so stubborn that you just repeat the same shit that doesn't work, because that's the only time you really come unstuck. Alongside, if you build a technical proficiency into a technical mastery of a movement, the programming, as long as you've got buy-in and work ethic, will kind of take care of itself, and then find the nuances that you want to apply to the individual.
And is that so through Dave? Do you think that that's where that really got fine tuned? So he's very big on that kind of finding that path forward and using stuff like builders and testers and all that stuff within the method itself.
Is more So when I was with him, I knew if I did a box squat in briefs, I maxed out on that, I know where my comp squat's at. And it was pretty close.
I used to feel the same way about the box squat. It used to be like 50 kilos behind, and then it's changed as I've gotten stronger at both. But
mine sat in a percentage.
Well, that's it. It will be roughly the same percentage.
Yeah.
That's a conversation I often have with people is like, you'll get to a point over a period of time where you know if this is moving well, that's going to add a certain amount to the main movement. You don't need to do the main movement all the time.
The only problem to that and the lag of that is if you have someone that's not proficient enough in the main movement, they need to do the main movement more to get good at it. And the better they get at it, the less they need to do it.
Yeah. And that's kind of what people argue against the conjugate system is that it's not specific enough because you're doing all this other stuff and not the main stuff. And it's like, well, if you're doing it properly, you're doing what you need to do.
Well, as long as you're good enough at the main movement and you've got enough practice in it, that's sort of all you need. Because if you got to remember where the conjugate system comes from too. It comes from equip lifting, not from raw.
Yeah.
So from an equip standpoint, like the people that are going to argue that are the people that are raw.
Yeah.
And if you take the people that are lifting raw and you go, okay, no worries, let's see how well your system works in an equip system. You're going to take your max squat that you need to have a packet of gummy bears for and prepare yourself so meticulously for, add 100 kilos, now do it every week and see how that works for you and see how long you last. And they'll find out real quick that doesn't apply.
Yeah.
But going back the other way, it will. So that's why it works for equipped and not for raw. Like my raw guys squat in a comp, like leading into a comp, they're going to squat in their comp set up heaps more than my equipped guys. Yeah. So because you can, where equipped you can't. That's the difference.
No, I couldn't fathom doing a prep like a linear prep like other people do, like raw people do in full gear each week. I'd just be
your body just won't handle it.
Yeah.
So that's the disparity, and because they've never had that feeling, they arguing a concept or a comparison that's not really an accurate. Like it's a false equivalency.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and often that will be the argument. You see people go, "Oh, I don't understand why this movement would be used. Like, why would you do a reverse band box squat, for example, if you're a raw guy?" It's like, well, you probably wouldn't if you were doing unless you need to build that up for some reason. If you were doing the conjugate system as a raw lifter, you wouldn't be using that because that wouldn't be building your squat.
No, right exercise for the right person at the right time.
Yeah, and I think that's where the disconnect is a lot between people's critique of conjugate and the actual function of it. It's like, no, you're actually applying what you need at the time. So
but
if you're a raw lifter, then you need to do...
Well, the other problem is just because they're in and again, the argument shows a lack of understanding. Just because you're in a conjugate system doesn't mean you can't do a raw squat 5 weeks in a row.
No.
You 100% can, because that's the whole point of it. You can do what you need to do at the time.
Yeah.
So if that's what they needed, that's what you do.
Yeah.
So it's not really an argument when you come to the crux of it. If you understand what the system entails, what they're trying to argue against is a West Side system.
Yeah.
That they've never trained, that they don't understand, that doesn't apply to them.
Yeah. But false equivalency.
Yeah. So then the argument it's not really an argument to be had because doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense at all. But if you look at how it actually plays out, like my version of conjugate is going to be different to yours, but it's going to take a lot of what I've learned from you and learned from other people. But more often than not, particularly for raw powerlifters, it looks more linear.
Yeah, it will look more linear.
Yeah. More so it'll be like a block. I'll keep it in a wave structure just because that's how I'll run the dynamic work. But even their dynamic work is not going to be, it's not box squats for speed. It's just volume and technical practice. Or their main max effort work might not be 1 RMs. It's going to be like a linear.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I apply it as well. Same sort of thing.
Yeah. So it's using the right tool for the job, I think, is what it really comes down to.
Yeah, and then it gives I've seen a bunch of posts from, especially coming out of the whole, to be a better athlete, you need some diversity in your movements. Yeah, I've been saying that the whole time.
I see that a lot, and I'm like, that sounds like a conjugated system.
Yeah, it sounds like variety to me.
Yeah, and it's really just using multiple tools at once. And it doesn't, like you said, you can apply it to a rehab client. You've got a greater set of tools to draw from. Whereas if you're a powerlifting coach and you're trying to take on Gen Pop people and they've got some real life injury, you might not have those tools to apply to it because what do you know how to do apart from squat, bench and deadlift and lat pull downs and RDLs? Like, at least through the conjugate system you build, and as you should, I guess, with being any good coach, and PTs are good for this, I think, if you're a good PT, you're going to find a whole bunch of tools because you're going to work with heaps of different people. So if that comes over and you've got all these powerlifting coaches who come just from powerlifting into being coaches, they don't have those tools.
Yeah, that just comes with the social media coach too.
Yeah.
It's out of an era where you can do a comp and become a coach.
Yep. Yep. Well, as one of those people, because I did the same thing. I got into training but I had someone at the time tell me, you've got a good temperament to teach people. You should get qualified and teach people. I never really thought of doing that. And so I went down that path, but I used the path as the opportunity to learn, not just sell.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. Is if you spend time learning, instead
you'll grow it over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably did some dumb shit too.
Oh, I'm sure I did.
Everyone does.
Yeah. I'm going to, when I started out, I was doing like linear blocks and using RPE a lot, not understanding RPE very well, and then having an SBD day at the end of that. So you do 4 days of training where you squat, bench, deadlift, bench again, and then an SBD day where you're doing like 8, 9 RPE singles.
Yeah, I've seen it all before. Like, I've seen people train like that.
What's some dumb shit that you've done in programming? Like when you were first learning how to program for powerlifting, that you look back on and go, Jesus, what was I thinking?
Probably just the wrong, not so much dumb shit, but the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Mainly. Just trying to work out and trying to implement what goes where and why. I'd put the wrong thing in the wrong where at the wrong why.
Yeah.
So nothing I did was like stupid, but it was just implemented incorrectly. Because like by the time I programmed for someone, I'd been going for a while.
Yeah.
So I'd just take it and then, like when you drive around, you're the passenger of the car and you sort of tune out for a little while and then all of a sudden, all right, you drive and you're like, fuck, where do I actually go? Is it like that moment? And it's like, oh, I wasn't paying attention this whole time. Yeah. And then when you've actually got to steer the ship, you're like, oh, shit, I think we did this here. And then it was, with a little bit of hindsight, you look back and go, oh, no, you fucked that up. And then how it took me a little bit to learn what are the actual foundations of lifting that I need to look for and how to teach them to beginners. Because it took me a while to train a beginner.
Yeah. Like
with someone that walked in with no lifting ability. Because when I started, it was, all right, you just lift now.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right then. And where now you're expected to be coached from day dot.
Yeah. Where
I was never necessarily coached from day dot. Like I fitted in and figured it out.
Yeah. So
there was that difference in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, often you'll see that, oh, how do I get into powerlifting? It's like, well, you get a coach.
Yeah, when I started, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, I would still say that it's better to go in and figure it out. Like, ask advice, but...
No. I think it'd be better to get a coach. Like, I could have saved myself 6 years of dumb shit.
Yeah.
If I got someone that knew what they were doing,
yeah,
that just showed me how to lift straight away, like it would have saved me, like in hindsight, it taught me a lot figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
And I know a lot because of how many mistakes I made. Yeah. Having a coach would have shortcutted all of that. Yeah. And if I didn't want to be a coach, that would be a better idea. Yeah. If I wanted to coach people, I'm glad it worked out the way that it did. If I was pure lifter, like I probably could have been pretty good before I got too broken and old.
Yeah.
Because I had to figure so much stuff out over so many years of redlining my body over not just lifting but other areas that I was into as well.
Yeah.
I picked up a fair bit of mileage.
Yeah.
And being an idiot, shortened a few things. Mm-hmm. Whereas getting the coach early on would have streamlined the whole process and sort of pointed the spear in the right direction, so to speak, to start off with. So it kind of depends on what outcome you're chasing.
Yeah.
But no aspirations to be a coach. get a coach. If you want to be a coach, figure shit out.
Yeah. It'll make you a better coach at the end of it. I guess that's why I'm thankful of the fact that I didn't necessarily get a coach straight away and I asked lots of questions.
It'll make you better in the long run.
Well, because my ultimate goal is to be the better coach than the lifter. But although I want to be as good a lifter as I can be, ideally I want to be the coach. So.
Well, I think you still need to. I think you still need to lead from the front.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want. I don't want a coach who's not a lifter at their core, because someone who's never lifted before, how can they coach you?
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't think they can.
Yeah, to a certain point. If they
I don't think they can at all.
Yeah.
What can they teach me that I can't learn on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, more so like to a certain point, they have to have gotten to a level where they've pushed.
Yeah, like it doesn't necessarily mean they don't have to have lifted at a super high level.
Yeah,
but they need to have lifted long enough to know the emotional processes, the anxieties, the ups and downs. Like how do you talk a lifter through bombing a meet if you've never even been in a comp?
Yeah,
I've done one comp and then you've got a lifter who's bombed on their third comp or something. How do you talk them through that when they've got more experience in you?
Yeah.
So you need some wisdom that comes with some failing.
Yeah.
And the coach that isn't the best lifter but been around a long time is going to be the best coach, because someone who's not blessed genetically, who's had to work for every little gain that they've got, they've had to work out every little trick in the book, where someone who's genetically gifted hasn't had to figure out shit.
Yeah.
Who's had it just...
Well, and those people write templates to sell on the internet. This is how I built my 500 kilo deadlift. It's like, well, you're a genetic
it's
freak.
Like you don't know how you've built that. You've just done it. Yeah. So those guys will make the good coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can't squat with a straight bar anymore because your
shoulder's fucked.
Your shoulder is fucked. But you're still training.
Yeah, still training.
Are you going to still compete?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I can't squat with a straight bar because I have no shoulder left.
Yeah.
So they advised me I need a total replacement. And they can't even just fix it. So they need to knock out the whole joint and give me a fake one.
Yeah. If you got a fake one, could you get under a straight bar?
Yes. Or they think. Yeah. However, I don't know what sort of structural integrity that will have. And at the moment, I can bench with it. I don't have a pec attached on the other side. So I've got a fuck shoulder on one side, no pec on the other side.
Even itself out.
Yeah, well, both sides are ruled. But I've got triceps, so I can still bench. Whereas if I take the shoulder replacement, I don't know if it'll be strong enough to handle the squat load that I want to do it in that hard externally rotated position that comes with a straight bar.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll handle the loading of a heavy bench.
Right.
And given that replacements only last a certain number of years, I'm just setting myself on the hamster wheel for repeat surgeries getting older.
Yeah.
So I've decided to just leave it. I can deal with the pain and just go with it until I can't.
So when are you going to compete next?
Well, I was teeing up this year sometime. Just I'll look at the calendar. I'll see what fits.
Yeah.
Like I've been training consistently now for 6 weeks. Back training, I should say.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a mental break there for a while. Like I did the last comp I did, like COVID sort of come in. I totaled in the high 9s, mid 9s somewhere.
Yeah, that was the comp. That was my first equip comp. So that was 4 years ago.
Yeah, and then like I pushed pretty hard going into that comp and just needed like a bit of a reset. And my body was hurting after that comp. So I just needed to like take a breather.
Yeah. Well, you did your knee at that comp, didn't you?
No, it's strained. Like I had like a vertical tear.
Yeah.
So nothing terrible, just hurt.
Yeah.
Like nothing that won't heal itself. Yeah. But it was just enough that you got to lay off the heavy work on it and just let it take care of itself for a bit.
Which so, like that's still that I don't know if it frustrates you. I'm frustrated for you at that comp because you squatted 375 as an opener, which is your biggest squat to date. Comp, isn't it?
No, 400.
Oh, right. Okay. So open powerlifting is missing that 400. Yeah. It's got your biggest squat listed as 375, and I thought that's wild because it was so fast it was ridiculous. And I remember talking to you like, I'm good for 450 today.
Yeah, that was the plan. So the plan was to hit 450 was meant to be conservative on that day because I hit it for a double in briefs in training leading up to that. And then the plan was to have a crack at 500 in a comp in the next 12 months after that. Yeah. And then COVID came and fucked all those plans, but that's life. Yeah. I hit 500 in the gym. Not enough to put it on, not good enough to put it on the platform, like it was a push. Yeah. Where 450 would have been 450, 460 would have put me on that 1,000 pound mark, which would have been nicely, like not conservative, like it would have been hard, but it would have been there. Mm-hmm. And then push for the next bit after that. That was the original plan. Yeah. And it was looking pretty good. And then I had that little pop in the knee on my second attempt, which was like 415. I went 375 to 420.
No, it was 415, I remember.
415. And then after that, I was either going to go anywhere from 430 to 450, 440 in there somewhere, but did end up not taking the next one. Benched really good that comp. Yeah. Which normally, like, I wasn't sure how the bench goes after squatting that heavy. But in hindsight, I just stuck to my original plan. Like, I had a plan going in on the bench, stuck to it, hit 3 from 3 on the bench. Yeah. In hindsight, I should have moved all my attempts up a notch.
Because you had the less fatigue from squats?
No, just because it went, like, it was just everything worked. Like, equipment-wise, everything just that comp. Because normally, like, you know what quick lifting's like. Yeah. Sometimes it can be... Most of the time, it's going to be like that general level. You get the odd day where everything just clicks, and everything just felt good that day benching. So should have gone heavier. And then
so when you finally get back on the platform, will we push pull?
Yeah.
Well, the plan is to do,
depending on how my shoulder handles the heavy benches, but yeah.
So you've been back 6 weeks training, and you've jumped in the shirt.
Yes.
Yep. You've roughly handled, I remember you telling me the other day, it was like 260 or something?
I haven't touched with it yet, but I did a one board triple on 260.
Yeah. And it's holding up all right?
Yeah, so far it clicks a bit, like I can feel it grinding and clicking.
Yeah, right.
Which is a bit creepy under load.
Yeah.
Because it'll feel, I've had an injection into it, a couple of injections with like a lubricating gel.
Okay.
I can't remember the name of it. They put cortisone and this lubricating shit in it, like into the joint under.
Is that because there's no cartilage in it?
Yeah, there's no.
It's bone on bone?
Yeah, it's bone. There's no cartilage, bone on bone. The entire socket's worn. Like there's no socket left. Mm-hmm. Like all the sockets worn.
Yeah, right.
And so they put this lubricating gel in there to try and it clicks. It's like, it just grinds and clicks like you're rubbing two rocks together.
Yeah.
Which feels really creepy. And when it happens down the bottom of a bench under that much pressure, I don't know if it's going to pop out or not.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit wary of that.
Yeah, so bringing it down from, I think a lot of people if you don't train with boards and you don't train in a shirt, you don't know how much that 2 board to chest is.
Like, it's a long way.
It's a long way.
Yeah.
It might only be 4 inches, but it's
2 inches because he's 1 inch boards.
No, 1 inch boards. Okay, so that's it's an astronomical amount of distance.
Yeah,
when you're in a tight shirt.
In my time off, I lost a bit of weight as well. Mm-hmm. Like I ran a marathon.
You got down under 100,
or
around 100.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I dipped below, but I was sitting pretty light. I needed to. I hate running and I fucking suck at it. So I thought, what's the thing that I hate the most? Like, how can I mentally push myself hard enough in something to engage my brain that's going to be easy on the body?
And did it work?
Yeah, give me a good, just time out.
Yeah. So you did a marathon. You've also done a charity boxing, or not even a charity boxing match.
No, just had a fight.
Just a boxing match.
Yeah, that was fun.
Recently? That was not long ago, was it?
No, December. Had a fight in December.
Which you won?
Yeah, that was good.
Did you win on points or did you knock him out?
No, point.
Yeah.
And
are you going to do more of that?
No, I don't have time. The problem is time.
Yeah.
And it kind of runs against the lifting as well. Like I can be okay at both or good at one.
Yeah.
And go back. I need to lead from the front, so I need to put lifting first.
Yeah.
And it's where I enjoy my time.
Mm-hmm.
So back, I had enough time off that I can enjoy it again, where it's not so much of a chore.
Yeah.
I was still training that whole time, but just not. By the time you go through the warm-ups to get your body ready, to get in the gear, to do the session, to get in, and then in the gym, I'd get asked a question in the middle of it, and it'd sort of distract me. And there'd be 20 minutes between a set, and fuck it, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah. And it was just hard to string good sessions together. So I found my balance again. Get in, do my session, pump it out, don't dilly-dally around.
Yeah.
I did my dynamic squats and deadlifts in under 12 minutes last week.
Oh.
So 16 sets, less than 12 minutes.
Yeah. Are you doing the same wave that you've given me at the moment?
Similar.
Yeah. So at the moment, for anyone listening, I'm finished it now, at the moment. Anyway, I was doing cambered bar squats against 40 kilos of chain, 8 sets of triples, supersetted with a deadlift that ascended each attempt. And I had to do that in under 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm out of shape.
So it's just good work capacity.
It's good work capacity. I was gassed. Like the strength was there. My glutes were on fire because they were under constant tension. So
I gave it to you as well because we've talked before about your time management skills. Yeah. So this will put you on the time management and it'll get me fit again. So we'll run it together and we'll see how we go.
I knew exactly when I saw a time limit in there. I'm like, you're trying to circumvent my time management. And I was like, I got it done. I went over a little bit on both week 2 and 3, largely because just trying to get someone to stand in the mono for 15 minutes was hard.
Now I just recruit someone and said, right, you're helping me till I finish my sets.
Yes. Well, a former Nemesis person, Jacob, has been my go-to for that. He's always been very on it. I'm like, Jacob, over he comes, very diligently. You've trained him well.
Just put someone on the job. I'll help you.
Well, you can put people on the job, getting people to stay there for stand still for 15 minutes. Yeah. You'd think it'd be easy, but sometimes it's harder than it seems. Well, to finish up today, where can we find you? Are you taking on people? What's next for the gym? What's next for you?
Like find me in Dubbo or find me in...
like on the internet.
I was really going to give me email address then. No, Instagram. I'm on the Instagrams.
Yeah.
Nemesis Powerlifting.
Yep.
Or Nemesis_powerlifting. Yep. Taking people.
Yep. You do a little bit of online. You coach me online.
I do a couple online.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot.
Not heaps. I don't advertise it, but I will do it.
Yeah.
If anyone's keen.
Yep. And what's next for the gym?
Well, we're here.
Yep.
So we're going to get through this. We're going to get through states.
Yep. And then you've got a comp in
August. Well, we've got Queensland. We've got Capo Nats.
Yep.
In August, we've got our comp in August, and we've got GPC Nats in August. So August is going to be busy.
Yeah.
So we're going to get through those. And then I haven't really planned the back end of the year yet.
Yep.
We're going to go to Worlds next year in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do that again.
Awesome.
And then we'll keep plugging along and keep working and
see where we go. Get back on the platform.
Yeah, I will. I think, I will at some point. Like I sort of crossed my mind between doing pension and nationals or not.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it is.
It's in Melbourne.
Do you know who's hosting it though?
No.
Yeah, so I haven't seen who's hosting it.
It is in September, I believe.
Yeah, righto.
Something like that. It's after Open Nats. I did see the other day.
Yeah, right. I have to have a look at that. Oh, that crossed my mind. Maybe I'll do that.
I have a feeling it's PTC again.
Yeah, righto.
Someone's told me that it's a PTC, and I said, "Where did you see that?"
Because there's that other mob was in Melbourne that started doing GPC comps.
Yes,
I can't remember the bloke's name, but I was talking to him last night. So he seemed pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
it's not Aries Strength. It's another one.
What was it? Peninsula
Barbell. That's it. Yeah, which is just down the road.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. But it was whether he has enough stuff to run it. But if it's TJMES or pension and nats, as you call it, it shouldn't be a huge comp. hopefully it'll be bigger than last year.
Who had it last year?
PTC.
Yeah, I know.
But the timing meant that heaps of people that were doing open nats that were masters didn't come. So we only had 16, 18 lifters.
Oh, was that all? Did you?
Yeah. My flight was like 6 people.
Yeah, righto.
It was a very quick comp.
Well, they need to, really need to put some effort into that one because it's a really good comp, or it's got the potential to be a really good comp.
It does. Yeah. I think, and, Marcos said to me at the time that he would rather it be in spring because it'd be better turnout-wise and not to be sandwiched in between nats. So,
well, it was springtime. When did I have it? I had it in November.
Yeah, you had it in like March or April. It was early.
Oh, early.
But last year it was in June and it was sandwiched right in the middle between states and nats.
June's a shit time. You can't put it in. No one went in it. That's a bad timing.
Yeah. So
you got to put it away from all the big stuff. And
Yep. Well, and what's the goal when you get back on the platform? Just get back on the platform, or
well, I'm going to put some numbers up first.
Yeah.
So just see where it's at.
bench 300.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I'd like to pull 360.
Yep. What's your best bench so far?
Best bench in comp or in the gym?
Both.
In comp, I hit 270, 272 or 277.
Mm-hmm.
And in the gym, I've hit 300.
Yep.
A couple of times, but I just haven't been able to
put it together,
replicate it on the day. Geared's finicky.
Yep. Well, the last time I saw you do bench only was in Canberra.
Yeah, it wasn't a good day,
and it didn't go.
It's just.
Well, I think there's another thing that raw people don't understand about equipped is that it doesn't always go very well.
No.
And you can do everything right.
I'm pretty sure I bombed that one.
Yeah, from memory.
Yeah.
Memory serves me. But yeah,
it's really hard to get a good technical handout when the weight gets that heavy.
Yeah. From a single person, even. Did you just use one person? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really like doing the 3 people because then you've got to. You said you can't get someone to help you for 15 minutes. Yeah. It's hard to get 3 people coordinated for a full bench session, and I like whoever's doing my bench handouts to do them for me consistently during like weeks and months leading into the meet.
Yeah. Just
so we know the system, we know how to get the shirt on, we know how the handout goes, and I just find as it gets up there, it's hard to. Yeah. And I'm not strong enough to muscle it. I need to be technical.
Yeah.
And I've got too many broken pieces to, like, when I was younger, it was a lot easier. Like, I had a lot more muscle in behind it. Now I'm getting old. I rely on technical ability a lot more than what I used to.
Yeah. So do you find that with the shoulder being as banged up as it is, like getting it out of the rack would be impossible, would it?
Oh, by myself, yeah. It doesn't work very well.
But like even with a handout, like you wouldn't be able to put any pressure into it.
Yeah, I can.
If your arm's behind you.
Yeah, I can, depending on how I position myself. I can get it out. Not as well as what I used to.
Yeah.
Like my raw bench is considerably lighter than what it used to be.
Yeah.
Which I'm slowly working on building it back as well.
Yeah.
I'm just a lot more tentative than what I used to be on it as well.
I understand if it sounds like rocks rubbing together when you're trying to touch
it. And just blowing the peck off the other side.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of power.
No, where there used to be. Everything, I could look at what I used to do, and everything used to move nice and fast and easy, and now it's heavy and slow. And so I'm relying on sort of old ability.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just a new set of, I just see it as a new set of challenges as I get older and I'm at where I'm at.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I thank you for coming up early. I know you were coming up here anyway, but I appreciate you fitting this in.
How did we go on the time? Did we fit an hour and a half in?
I think we went a bit over. Might be the longest one yet, but I expected it to be.
I walked in here. Here's for your listeners because you've got the video on, but you don't really have.
You can't really see
looking at us in the side over there. I'm just looking at that casting couch looking thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm led up these dingy stairs above a boat shed into like a casting couch, and I'm thinking, where the fuck am I doing?
Then we turn on all the red lights.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is going on here? But it's a very nice studio, very good.
It's a lovely job. It's a lovely studio. That's for guests, and this is the office during the day. So
I'm not going to sit on that.
Yeah, no.
I don't know what you've done. You should put
this is where Jacob has a nap.
Put a post up on your page showing the couch.
And see what people
and just see what people think. Yeah. And they'll go, oh, he was right.
Yeah.
That does look dicey.
Well,
It's even got a little coffee table in front of it and everything.
yeah. Well, I don't know what the Polaris boys get up to, but I'm sure it's all above board. Even if it doesn't look it.
I'm sure it is.
Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks to everyone tuning in. We'll be back again soon.